listening to the J.R. McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email J.R. McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is J.R. McGee.
Good evening, and welcome to the show tonight. Tonight I want to look at the new future king of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed Bin Salman. I have to ask, is he the world's most dangerous man, or is he a voice of reason in a region of insanity? There are people and countries on both sides of this equation, and tonight I'd like to do something to help us. A lot of people really are confused and don't understand a lot of what's going on in the Middle East. So we're spending some time on really educating ourselves about what's going on. And tonight I want to look at Saudi Arabia. I want to look at the history of Saudi Arabia. I want to look at how did we get to where we are today. I want to take a look at this new young leader. He's 32 years old, Mohammed Bin Salman. He's going to become the next king of Saudi Arabia. And I have to tell you, he is really shaking up the world. He is a radical change agent, and he is shaking everybody's tree in a good way. I think that there's an awful lot that we could learn from this. Then I want to take a look at exactly what he's done so far and what it means. And then last, he is responsible for some significant peace initiatives with Israel and with some of the other kingdoms in the Middle East. And he could be a major impetus for breaking through some of the deadlock that's been in place for the last 40 years. So there's an awful lot that we want to cover. I want to get in first to understand the people of Saudi Arabia. And as I'm working with most Americans, they really don't understand even the names of the people. You have to understand what their names mean in order to understand who's who. All the names sound remarkably similar, and you know what I mean. So I want to give us a quick lesson here in how to interpret exactly who's who in the zoo. There's 4 identifiers in an individual's name in the Middle East, especially in Arabic. One is Abu. Abu, A-B-U, stands for father. Bin means son of. So Osama bin Laden means Osama, son of Laden. And Ibn, I-B-N, loosely, that means of or from. That tells you where the individual is from. And then last, they often use al, A-L, and that means the, like Muhammad al-Baghdadi. That means Muhammad from the city of Baghdad. So if you understand what the name means, then it's much easier to remember and recognize who's who as we go through all of this. So I want to look at a couple of things here. I want to take a look at the history of Saudi Arabia. And the current kingdom of Saudi Arabia came into existence in 1932. And Abdullah Aziz Ibn Saud, which means Abdullah Aziz from Saudi Arabia, he was the king from 1932 to 1953. And he had 47 sons. That makes for a very messy familial relationship. There were several sons who became very prominent. And there was Saud bin Abdullah Aziz, and he was the king from 1953 to 1964. Then there was Faisal bin Abdullah Aziz. And again, that means Faisal, the son of Abdullah Aziz. He was king from 1964 to 1975. And then Khalid bin Abdullah Aziz, he was king of Saudi Arabia from 1975 to 1982. Fahd bin Abdullah Aziz was king from 1982 to 2005. And then we get into the modern era. Abdullah bin Abdullah Aziz, he was king from 2005 to 2015. A lot of Americans don't even realize that the king of Saudi Arabia died just about 3 years ago. And when that occurred, Salman bin Abdullah Aziz, he became king and is currently king from 2015 to the current day. He's very old, not in the best of health. It's rumored that he has either dementia or Alzheimer's, and he is not in the public eye very often. He only is seen in very scripted, very controlled environments. And his current son, Mohammed Bin Salman, which means Mohammed, son of Salman, is currently the defense minister and the new crown prince. This is a major change because in 2012, Naif bin Abdullah Aziz, who was going to be king, he died in 2012. He was going to replace Abdullah bin Abdullah Aziz, but he passed away. His son, Mohammed bin Naif, was interior minister and a very powerful individual in Saudi Arabia. He really did an awful lot in the power structure for that. But when Salman bin Abdullah Aziz became king in 2015, Mohammed bin Naif was removed as crown prince, and Mohammed bin Salman, the current crown prince and the current defense minister, was installed. This was a major shakeup because Mohammed bin Naif is fairly experienced. He's got age. Mohammed bin Salman is only 32 years old. So this is not normal in Middle East culture. This was a major, major change. And Mohammed bin Salman, he's in that age group where he is absolutely a millennial. And for a lot of us, we're still trying to figure out who millennials are. What do they do? How do they think? What's different about them? And they do think differently. And Mohammed bin Salman is already changing a great deal of what is occurring in Saudi Arabia. Now, in terms of looking at how we got to where we are, we have to look at the past 10 years. And frankly, it has not been good. We've had a very strong relationship with Saudi Arabia since the mid-1970s. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to explain a little bit in the next segment why that is. But in the last 10 years, that relationship's been damaged tremendously. Obama, he was really passionate about the Iranian nuclear deal. And that is a direct threat to Saudi Arabia. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. In addition, Obama was a supporter of the Senate bill to name Saudi Arabia as responsible and expose them to lawsuits over the 9/11 tragedy. Saudi Arabia responded to that very negatively. And these are issues. There's some other things that are going on, but those two in particular are reasons why Saudi Arabia has sold off billions in U.S. treasuries and is now working to sell oil in other currencies other than the U.S. dollar. I'm going to go into the trade deal that Richard Nixon and his Secretary of Treasury made with Saudi Arabia in the 1970s that set up what really fundamentally drives our economy. And this change jeopardizes, in the extreme, our reserve currency status. In fact, our economy right now is tied directly to the recognition of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency. If that changes, our economy is in desperate trouble, and that's now at risk. Hillary Clinton also had an extremely complex relationship with Saudi Arabia, and I think complex is a polite way to put that. It was the very definition of a love-hate relationship. The Saudi hierarchy did not like Hillary. She was a woman who was difficult to work with. They're not used to working with women, and she pushed a lot of stuff in their face. Hillary also didn't have personal relationships with these people. In fact, one of my friends who was with the Secret Service related to me an incident at the very end of Hillary's term as Secretary of State. She landed in Saudi Arabia for a meeting, and she was not allowed to get off her plane. In fact, the plane had to divert to another country in order to refuel because they would not let Hillary off the plane in Saudi Arabia. That has never happened before. That was unbelievably difficult. But Saudi Arabia also was a major funder for Hillary's election campaign. In fact, Saudi Arabia funded almost 20% of Hillary's presidential campaign. And the reason for that is the Saudis are very practical people. They absolutely believed, like almost everybody else, that Hillary was going to become the president, and they wanted to be seen supporting her. The fact that they supported her for almost 20% of her campaign budget is extraordinary. And then you got John Kerry. John Kerry was seen as the chief architect of the Iranian nuclear deal, and unfortunately somebody who repeatedly broke their word to the Saudis. And Kerry threw Saudi Arabia under the bus over this mess in Syria, and he disrespected them in public in his dealings with Iran. As a direct result, Saudi Arabia has begun an active pursuit of their own nuclear program. This is incredibly important. I want to stop for a commercial break, but we're going to get into this and go into it in a lot more detail as we come back.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
Hey, skiers and snowboarders, are you guys heading out on a ski trip? Maybe it's just a long weekend here in the local area, or you've hit it big and you're going for a week out west. Have you ever found yourself at the ski slope and realized that you need a new pair of goggles or maybe even a ski lock? Did weather conditions change and you found you were caught unprepared? Well, it's happened to me, and don't do like I did. Don't pay up to 50% more at the slopes. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops before you go and save big. They've got everything you're going to need for your trip. They got goggles, neck ups, toe warmers, long underwear, hats, gloves, sunglasses, socks, wax, ski locks, and the list goes on and on. Let their experienced staff help you get ready for your next trip. So have a great trip, but be sure and stop by one of our 7 area Buckman ski and snowboard shops before you go. Located in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exton, PA. Can't get to one of the shops? That's okay. You can shop online at buckmans.com. It's quick, easy, shipping's free for orders over $50. You can't lose with a deal like that.
You're listening to the J.R. McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email J.R. McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is J.R. McGee.
Welcome back. And tonight's show, we're talking about Mohammed Bin Salman, the new future king of Saudi Arabia, and his impact on both Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. There's a lot of things that are happening. But again, I also want to help educate people on exactly what's going on over there. And, you know, we all know that the Middle East is Islamic. But what a lot of people don't necessarily fully understand is there are various different sects of Islam. There's the Sunni Islamic religion, the Shia Islamic religion, and the Wahhabi Islamic religion. And those three are very distinctly different. And Saudi Arabia is seen as the protectorate of the 3 key critical sites in Islam. Mecca, obviously, and Medina, which are in Saudi Arabia. And then they share responsibility with Jordan over the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount in Israel. Now, Sunni is the dominant religion in Saudi Arabia, And Sunni is also the dominant religion in Egypt, Jordan, Oman, Sudan, Libya, Algeria, and Morocco. Those are firmly in the Sunni Islamic camp. Now, Shia is a separate sect of Islam. It's distinctly different from Sunni, and by far the country that is most dominated by Shiaism is Iran. Iran is the leader of the Shia Islamic world, and they are in direct conflict with Saudi Arabia. Iran wants to be the protectorate of Islam. They want to be the dominant sect in Islam. And Saudi Arabia and Iran are in a very, very existential conflict over that very issue. Now, Shia, clearly Iran is the most dominant in Shia, but also Iraq, Azerbaijan, Yemen, which we'll talk a little bit about, Lebanon, which is in conflict right now, the United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, and Turkey are all dominantly Shia Islam. Now, I have to bring up the point. Even though those are the dominant religions in each of those countries, all three religious sects are present in each country. I'm giving you the dominant population for each of these, and really, it's very relevant because these are the relationships and the alliances that are forming. And in particular, Russia is forming strong alliances with the Shia nations, predominantly Iran, Iraq, and they're moving into Afghanistan, believe it or not, and they are highly involved in Syria. And Turkey is working to build an alliance with Russia and moving away from NATO. So this is all very, very relevant. The smallest sect in Islam is Wahhabis. The Wahhabism sect is by far the most radical. In fact, most of the Islamic terrorism is driven, funded, and supported by the Wahhabi sect. And the Wahhabis are strong in Egypt, and they're also strong in Saudi Arabia. But they're not dominant. They're a small segment of the population, but they're very active. They're very, very involved in a lot of different regions and supporting a fundamentalist, often violent form of Islam. That's the ones that we have most of the terrorists either supported, trained, or equipped by the Wahhabis. Now, the issue in all of this is, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And it means that it is a very volatile region. Everybody realizes that the Middle East has been in conflict for as long as there's been a Middle East. And Islam came into being in the 700s, long after Judaism was formed, and Christianity came into being in the 1st century, and Islam came into being in the 7th century. And these three religions are all related. They're all Abrahamic religions. They all relate to Abraham as their father, but they're in violent disagreement over whose interpretation of all of this is correct. And that leads to a lot of conflict. And ironically, the conflict within the Middle East between the different Islamic countries is often more intense than the conflict between Judaism and Christianity. Judaism and Christianity get a lot of the publicity, but the conflict between these countries is huge. Right now, Saudi Arabia is in a war with Yemen, and they are taking some serious steps with Oman, and they are in an existential battle with Iran. And Iran is supporting both Iraq and Syria and Lebanon in their battle against Israel, and to move against Saudi Arabia is the dominant protectorate of the holy sites. It is really hard to know the players without a scorecard, even for those of us who are paying a lot of attention to this. It is very complex. Now, where the United States got involved in the Middle East really came into being in 1974, and that was a result of the 1973 oil embargo. And for better or worse, I was a college student then, and I remember having to stand in long gas lines to get gas to go to my college classes. And it was very serious. The oil embargo really brought the United States to its knees. In response to that, the president at the time was Richard Nixon. And Richard Nixon had a Secretary of the Treasury named William Simon. And in July of 1974, Nixon sent Simon to Saudi Arabia. And it was for a absolutely essential agreement to take oil off the table as an economic weapon and to fund the United States debt. Because if you remember, about that same time, we went off the gold standard and our economy began to be debt driven. And we needed someone to purchase our treasuries to fund that debt. Now, this agreement that William Simon came up with, it really did three things. The first and foremost is it ensured that the United States would buy their oil from Saudi Arabia in U.S. dollars. Something that's also very, very powerful in all this. Saudi Arabia agreed to only sell oil to all other countries in the U.S. dollars. Now, what that did is that allowed the U.S. dollar to become recognized as a reserve currency. Now, we probably are going to do a radio show on the reserve currency status because it's that important. But the reserve currency status is what allows us to operate at a deficit. Every other country in the world has to back up their currency with something of value, either gold, oil, or something that's tangible. The United States backs up our dollar with what are called oil equivalencies. And the value of a 55-gallon barrel of oil fluctuates around $60. And so all of our treasury notes, all of our debt is backed by oil. And a lot of people don't realize that. Instead of having a gold-backed currency, we have an oil-backed currency. And that is, it only works because we're a reserve currency, and Saudi Arabia has agreed to supply oil on the international market in U.S. dollars tied to that trade rate. So when countries buy U.S. treasuries, they buy them based on oil equivalencies. And it's a very, very delicate balance. And it's worked now since 1974. But recently, Saudi Arabia, because they were so upset with the Obama administration, and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry in particular, that they agreed with other countries to move off of that agreement. They no longer sell oil only in U.S. dollars. In fact, they're now beginning to sell oil in what's called a basket of currencies. Now, the third thing that came out of this agreement with Secretary of the Treasury Will Simon was that in response to these agreements for Saudi Arabia to do this for us, they agreed that the United States would fund their military, we would supply them with military hardware, we would supply them with training, and we would supply them with advisors. And we have. That's established the security of the Middle East for the last 20 to 30 years. And it's been very stable with a few exceptions. Now, in order for the United States to engage in the deficit spending, we are dependent upon Saudi Arabia buying our treasuries and agreeing to these oil equivalencies. That is now no longer the case. In fact, the $20 trillion debt that we have is funded and backed by oil, and now Saudi Arabia is reneging on that deal. They're trading with other currencies, and I referred to this basket of currencies, and it's Japanese yen, Chinese yuan, the euros, gold, and now something new has come about. There's a single currency in the Gulf states of the Middle East, and it is now recognized as a currency that can be used to trade oil. Russia, China, Iran, and India are now doing business with Saudi Arabia and buying oil without using U.S. dollars. That may sound like not much, but I can assure you that is really dramatically changing the fundamental balance of everything that holds our economy and our society together here in the United States. Let's take a break for another commercial response, and then we'll learn some more when we come back.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's ski and snowboard shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's ski and snowboard shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exon, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.
You're listening to the J.R. McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email J.R. McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is J.R. McGee.
Welcome back. And tonight, we're talking about Mohammed Bin Salman. Is he a very dangerous man, or is he a voice of reason in a region of insanity? And I think there's a case to be made for both sides of that argument. So now that we understand why Saudi Arabia is so important to the United States right now, and a lot of people don't see that or understand that, and I hope that now with some of this background, you can see where we are with this. And I'll be very honest with you. I did 66 pages of notes to prepare for our show tonight. And frankly, I thought, well, that's nuts. We could spend 8 hours a day, 5 days for a week, and not cover everything that's really important about why Saudi Arabia is so critical to our future, our safety, and our security. But tonight, I want to hit the high points, and I really want to spend some time now looking at the new leader of Saudi Arabia, because here's why. He's going to be making decisions. He's going to be working to make changes. He's going to be doing things that direct us directly. And he's going to play a big role in what happens in the United States. As I pointed out in our last segment, he could absolutely tank the U.S. economy in ways that are far more devastating than the crash of 1929. Or he could reestablish the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States and ensure our security. And frankly, he has already developed a very good relationship with Donald Trump. Surprisingly, he and Trump connected very well, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared, has also established a very good relationship with Mohammed bin Salman. These are very good points, but it's really important that we understand who is Mohammed bin Salman, really. I mean, we know what the news media is saying, and frankly, I don't think that we get the full picture from the news media. So I want to do a little deep dive on who he is. And you know, he was born in August the 31st, 1985, and he's got a bachelor's degree in law at King Saud University. Now, here's something that I found out. He graduated second in his class. I have to tell you, I would not like to be the individual that came in first. I can hear that conversation. That guy is probably now cleaning the stables at the Royal Horse Academy, where I'm certain that they can benefit from his intelligence and his education. It's not always good to beat the guy in power. But with that being said, I've done a lot of work in the Middle East, and I've trained Middle Eastern fighter pilots. I've worked with the intelligence services in the Middle East. And frankly, they range from outstanding. I've worked with some extremely good fighter pilots and some very intelligent analysts, all the way to people who I'm not sure how they sit facing forward in the fighter jet, and everything in between. Mohammed Bin Salman, he's a serious individual, and he is extremely intelligent. He's hardworking, which is also unusual. He's very active. He is not passive. The majority of the leaders in Saudi Arabia up until now have been very passive. They're used to letting everyone else do work for them. Mohammed bin Salman is cut from a different sheet of cloth. He really wants to change the Middle East, and he's already making a whole bunch of changes. In June of 2017, he was elevated to the position of crown prince. That means that when the king passes away, he will become the new king. And as I said in segment 1, he's replacing his cousin Mohammed bin Nayef, who was a very powerful person in the royal family. So this is a major change, and a major change in a direction, and an elevation of a millennial in a position of extreme power. I think he may be one of the very first millennials to occupy a position that can have such an impact on the world. So we're going to get a chance to see a lot about what happens with this. Now, he didn't just happen on the scene in 2017. In 2013, he was named the crown prince and attained the rank of a minister. And it was because of his father, because his father had been appointed the crown prince after the death of Nayef bin Abdulaziz. We covered that. And so he's been a player since 2013. So we've got some history with him. We've got some examples that we can look at to see what he's done. And what has shaped his worldview? Because he's got a different worldview than any Saudi leader before him. And can we trust him? That is the ultimate issue. Can we trust this individual? Will he continue to work with the United States? That's the key element to this. Now let's take a look at some of the things that he's done to see what exactly he's done with this. And frankly, when he was appointed as the Minister of Defense, he very quickly did two things. He declared war on Yemen, and Yemen was working with Iran to attack Saudi Arabia, but it was low level. It was basically, at that point, it was a lot of terrorist attacks. It was kind of the Arab Spring type initiatives. But very quickly, those attacks escalated, and Mohammed bin Salman took that as an opportunity to squash that. He wanted to show three things, I believe. He wanted to show that Saudi Arabia would no longer just stand back and take it. I think he also wanted to show that Saudi Arabia was serious about maintaining her role as the dominant protectorate of Islam. And he wanted to put his own fingerprint on something to show people that he was serious. So he engaged in a very active war with Yemen. And up until that point, Saudi Arabia was not known for going to war. Let's face it, we fought their wars for them. Other people fought their wars for them. Saudi Arabia was not known as being a warrior kingdom. Under Mohammed bin Salman, that is changing. The second thing that Mohammed bin Salman did is he actively and openly engaged with Iran. He escalated that up dramatically, and that came as a result of Iran supplying Yemen with ballistic missiles, which Yemen then fired at Riyadh, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia. That's a serious escalation. There's no doubt about it. When people start firing ballistic missiles at you, That's serious. Now, fortunately, Saudi Arabia had purchased the Patriot missile system from the United States, and that has been very successful so far in shooting down those missiles. That has solidified our value to Saudi Arabia. But the third thing that he did is he imposed a blockade on Qatar. Qatar is a small country in the Middle East, but they have been very heavily associated with terrorism, in particular Hamas and Hezbollah. They have been flirting with Iran, and there's an issue over the ownership of some islands between Iran and Qatar. And Qatar has moved away from being dominantly supported by Saudi Arabia to now kind of playing both sides of the fence in Iran against Saudi Arabia. So Mohammed put into place a blockade on Qatar. They also cut off the funding for Qatar. He took several aggressive steps that has changed the dynamic, again, in that part of the world. How that's going to end, it's not clear yet. All three of these initiatives are very much in flux right now. The war in Yemen is not going well. Iran is proving to be very belligerent and is really ramping up her aggressiveness in the Middle East. And Qatar is fighting back and moving more and more into the Iranian sphere of influence. So it's a very dynamic situation. Let's take another commercial break and we'll come back and we'll learn some more.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, Buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's ski and snowboard shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's ski and snowboard shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exon, PA. Or you can visit them online at Buckmans.com.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, Buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
You're listening to the J.R. McGee Show. To participate on the show, call us and leave a voicemail. Our number is 267-935-9042. You can also email J.R. McGee your thoughts or questions you'd like him to address. Just send us an email to jrmcgeeradio@gmail.com. Now, from WMPV Lansdale, here is J.R. McGee.
Welcome back. And again, we're talking about Saudi Arabia in particular, and Mohammed bin Salman specifically, is he a man of reason, or is he really dangerous? So let's take a look in this segment at what has he done. I think if you understand what somebody's doing, you get some insight into who that person really is. And I found that actions do speak louder than words. Now, in 2016, Mohammed Bin Salman, he unveiled a very ambitious and a particularly wide-ranging plan for economic and social change to Saudi Arabia, and it was all driven to end Saudi Arabia's addiction to oil, as he called it. And the plan's called Vision 2030, and he's laid out a 10-year roadmap to move Saudi Arabia from where they are to where he thinks they need to be. And he envisions increasing non-oil revenue to 600 billion reals, that's about $160 billion American, by 2020, and 1 trillion reals by 2030. And that's pretty aggressive. That's non-oil revenues. Almost all of Saudi Arabia's economy has been driven by oil for as long as Saudi Arabia has been a modern nation. Now, the issue is also, what does he want to do with that? He wants to create what he calls the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. And he thinks that fund's going to be worth up to about $3 trillion. He's going to fund this by privatizing the state oil company, Saudi Aramco. Now, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and a couple of other countries have teamed together to put a company in place that manages the oil fields and the oil production and the oil transportation in Saudi Arabia. And Aramco is that company. I've got several friends who have worked for Aramco. I know quite a bit about Aramco. Now, if you need to understand how big this company is, they're trying to put together this IPO, this initial offering, and 5% of the company is what they want to privatize. And they're valuing that 5% at $3 trillion. Now, this week, there's been some major problems that have developed for that. They think that the valuation of that is only $2 trillion. But frankly, this is basically a $40 to $60 trillion company. Trillion with a T. That's big. So because that's in trouble now, they may list the IPO just in Saudi Arabia. If they do, that's going to have some real significant consequences in the international financial markets. We'll talk about that in a later show maybe. There's several other things that he's done that have been unbelievable. He directly is responsible for women now being allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Now, we think, well, it's about time. But in Saudi Arabia, that's a really big deal. He's also responsible for a serious reduction in the religious police. These are mostly Wahhabis. These are the people who would go around and beat people if they weren't dressed properly, if they did something wrong. He has seriously curtailed the religious police in Saudi Arabia. He's implemented a major war on radicals in the kingdom. He has declared war on a lot of the Wahhabi sect, and he is actually making progress in getting rid of a lot of the radicals. And he's also just in the past few weeks removed a 35-year ban on movie theaters. You can now go to the movies again in Saudi Arabia. And he's allowed dancing. I mean, these are major, major changes in the culture of a country that's not known for cultural change. He's also the Minister of Defense, and he's the youngest Minister of Defense in the world. The issue in Yemen is not going well. He seems to be doing a pretty good job at that, and he's interacting with other countries in a very appropriate way. In fact, last week he was in Great Britain. He met with the Queen. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting. And he also met with the Prime Minister, Miss May, and talking about Saudi Arabia's financial, military, and security issues with Great Britain. And he is actively engaging with the world. This is really significant. He's also bringing, in addition to allowing women to go to the movies, women to drive, he's increasing women's participation in the workforce. He's also trying to create an entertainment sector specifically to create jobs for young people. One of the problems in Saudi Arabia, there's There's not much of a middle class. Everybody gets their money from the government, and the young people don't really have a lot of jobs. So he's creating a jobs program in a country that's never focused on jobs. And it goes to something grandiose. He doesn't seem to do things in a small way. In April of 2017, he announced plans for a 129 square mile entertainment city. And this city is going to offer a range of cultural and sporting activities, including a safari park. Now, I don't know about you, but 129 square mile amusement park, that's pretty grand. Now, I wish I had time. In fact, we may do a whole show on this alone. He's declared a war on corruption. And not just talk. He's actually locked up a large number of Saudi officials. Farad bin Abdullah, the former deputy defense minister. Turki bin Nassar, the former head of meteorology and environment. Turki bin Abdullah, the former governor of Riyadh. Mitab bin Abdullah, the minister of the National Guard. That's a serious post. And biggest of all is Al-Walid bin Talal. He was acknowledged as being one of the richest people in Saudi Arabia. He was one of the most powerful people in Saudi Arabia. He was very tightly coupled with both Bill and Hillary Clinton, and he was a major player in the international markets. All of these people were locked up on corruption charges. And he has made it very clear that the old way of doing business in Saudi Arabia is no longer acceptable. I have to tell you, that is huge. It's almost impossible to estimate how big a deal that is. He's gone to war with his own government to change the culture and to change the culture of corruption. I wish him well in that. And as we close out tonight's session on Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman, I want to look at something that's the most important piece of this. And it's the part that explains why we should care as Americans. What's this really all about, and why does it affect us? I have it on good authority that recently Mohammed bin Salman made a discreet visit, a classified visit to Israel. Now, I'm sorry, but that hasn't happened in a long time. And it was a very serious trip. Very shortly after that trip occurred, Saudi Arabia required Mahmoud Abbas, who's the president of the Palestinians, to show up in Saudi Arabia. It was for, quote, consultations, unquote. And that's a polite way of saying they told him to show up or else. And it was apparently Mohammed bin Salman was very abrupt with Mahmoud Abbas, which Mahmoud Abbas is not used to people being abrupt with him. He's not used to people being serious with him. He's frankly used to people kowtowing to him. The UN in particular, the United States, everybody's just given him everything he's ever asked for. Well, Mohammed bin Salman apparently presented a plan, and it's not a plan that the Palestinians thought that they would get. They will get a state of their own by this plan from the Saudi Arabians, and apparently the Jordanians and the Egyptians are all in agreement with this. The Palestinians will get a state of their own, but non-contiguous parts of the West Bank, and only a limited sovereignty over their own territory. The vast majority of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank are going to remain in Israeli hands under this agreement. The Palestinians would not be given East Jerusalem as their capital, and there would be no right of return for Palestinian refugees and their descendants. I can't tell you how shocking this is coming from the Arab side of the table. And I've confirmed that this peace plan was presented to Mahmoud Abbas, and he was told by the Saudis that this is what he's going to get, and basically to sit down, shut up, and sign. Or Saudi Arabia would work to replace him as the president of the Palestinians and put somebody else in who was finally willing to talk about peace. Because, frankly, the Palestinians have rejected every peace initiative that's been made to them over the course of many years, every single one of them. And frankly, it's becoming tedious. Israel's Yisrael Katz, who is the Minister of Intelligence and Atomic Energy, extended a formal invitation to the King of Saudi Arabia and to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to formally visit Israel. And this is direct fallout from the United States' decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish state. That decision continues to reverberate, and it's creating some amazing movement and changes where there's been nothing but the status quo for year after year after year after year after year. Now, in addition to that, Mr. Katz extended the invitation because he, quote, "I want to have regional peace." Now, the Israeli defense minister, which is Yaakov Nagel, he claimed that the Saudi Arabian kingdom expressed to him that they were willing to accept almost any kind of an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal because they're looking for Israel to present a united front with Egypt and Jordan against Iran. That has become far more important in the Middle East than the efforts of the Palestinians. Frankly, I believe that the Palestinians have overplayed their hand. They've delayed, and frankly, time was always on their side because every time they got an offer, it was better. So why not wait? Well, apparently that train has left the station, and now they're going to be told what kind of peace deal that they can get, and it's not going to be anything like what they could have had they accepted a peace deal earlier on. Now, Saudi Arabia and Israel still do not have diplomatic relations. Egypt has a peace treaty with Israel. Jordan has military agreements in place with Israel. I believe Saudi Arabia is moving towards a diplomatic relationship with Israel. I believe that they're going to put some things on the table. I think in the next coming weeks and months, we're going to see some major movements, some huge changes in the Middle East. And I think Mohammed bin Salman is already driving an awful lot of those. In my opinion, if I look at whether or not he is the most dangerous person in the world or a voice of reason, his actions have shown to me he's moving Saudi Arabia very much in the right direction. He's taking steps against corruption. He's changing the culture. He's including women. He's moving to create jobs in their workforce. All of these are very, very strong positive changes. The initiative with Israel is earth-shaking. If he can drive that, he will be unbelievably successful. I think we need to stand by. There's going to be an awful lot happening, and I hope to cover it with you as it occurs. I want to thank my board man, Mark Driver, and my producer, Chris O'Brien. Join me next week when we're going to tackle another issue about the Second Amendment and news that should be in the news. Good night, and God bless.
At Buckman's, we're passionate about skiing, snowboarding, and having fun with friends and family. Everything we do, from the gear we carry to the services we offer, is driven by this passion. Since our first shop opened in 1971 until today, we are proud that all our stores are family-owned and operated. Our online store, buckmans.com, also reflects this passion. When you order from us, an actual skier or snowboarder ships your order out of an actual shop, not some giant warehouse. It's our mission to share our love for the outdoors with you, so you and your loved ones can experience winter to its fullest. You may not have heard of us, but if you want that mom and pop feel, combined with the expert knowledge and award-winning service that comes from over 45 years of experience, why not give us a try? Buckmans.com.
I want to take a second and tell you about some really good friends of mine. Buckman's ski and snowboard shops. Staying warm is important for every skier and snowboarder. The secret to warmth is found in what you wear, and the key is layering. At Buckman's ski and snowboard shops, you'll find the biggest selection of long underwear, fleece pullovers, vests, jackets, pants, and shells. You'll also find hundreds of gloves, mittens, hats, neck-ups, and socks you can choose from. So, get outside and stay warm this winter. Stop by Buckman's ski and snowboard shops in King of Prussia, Ardmore, Montgomeryville, Doylestown, Reading, Whitehall, and Exon, PA. Or you can visit them online at buckmans.com.